Hey guys, before we get started with the new series, I would just like to give a shout out to Populate the Moon. This guy was a user that I found on the site when I was looking up the hashtag All Speech Matters, and he made a video with his artwork, depicting the situation and where he stood on the matter. One thing led to another. We looked at each other's content, and he wanted to make some channel art for me. So I have finally had my own channel's logo in the form of this awesome Jedi. And yeah, it's pretty awesome. You guys should go check him out. I'll link him in the description below and give the link to his Twitter. And he also has a Twitch page, which he does a lot of live stream of different games. So you guys should check him out. Definitely. Cue the intro. Hey guys, it's OddMcbump coming at you with a new series called D&D Tips. For my first one, I have for you realistic bonuses and minuses. Before we begin, I would like to apologize because my mic that I use to record these videos has kind of started glitching out and eventually broke. So if I sound a little bit different, that's why. Also, I'll be going on a trip not too far into the future. So I'm recording this video just try to give you guys something in the meanwhile, just to keep going out. I know I haven't uploaded in about a week by the time of this recording. So I'm hoping that I can offer some more content even if I'll be going away for a while. Now, with that being said, let's get started. Now, realistic bonuses and minuses. This is something that every DM needs to at least think about adding whenever they throw a campaign to try to add a little bit of realism to the game. Because not a lot of players think about, bathing, eating well, drinking well. They don't think about taking care of themselves as far as being characters. They don't think about, if I drink water from this stream, will I get sick because the water may be contaminated? They don't think about, cooking your food well or making sure, everything's sound with what you're putting into your own body or that kind of stuff. Or, other things amongst that. So I've compiled a small list of what I believe need to be taken into account. There's probably a lot more stuff that I won't be thinking about, but in the meantime, I did write what I could think about and what I use and employ as a basis to talk about. Now the first one, the bonuses I'm going to talk about, is eating well. And a lot of DMs agree with me on this when it comes to realism. If you eat well and you eat, say you had a great breakfast to start out the morning, it was full of meats, vegetables, it was full of a lot of good, nutritious, energy type food. Well, whenever you need to do a physical activity in the day, you're going to have a little bit more energy to start off with. So maybe give them, if you're playing 5e or something, give them an advantage to their first strength-based roll or maybe dexterity-based roll, because that could go into, how agile they're going to be. And if you've ever tried to move very quickly without eating a lot, it's really hard if you are, you haven't eaten very well. And just like bonuses, you can also give minuses for this. What if they didn't eat very well? Food ration, I think, is the kind of middle ground between eating well and kind of eating, whatever. So if you ate, let's say, a couple of berries in the morning, well, you're probably not going to be doing so great when it comes to physical activities because you have nothing to really draw from to get all your strength out there. Another thing to keep in mind is how much water that your players are drinking. And yeah, this can get tedious. And if you're playing 5e, you could just pick the Outlander background so you can always have enough water and food. Although if they decided to use the Outlander background feature to allow them to have food and water, I would keep it to an average instead of saying that they ate very well. Because if you think about it, everything in 5e, when you're rolling, or instead of rolling, you can just take things normally, like your passive perception. If you have really good feats that stack into your perception, or you have a high wisdom, sometimes it's better just to take your passive, and statistically it's always better to take the passive, I believe. So that even goes into your health, because you can pick to take your health, have your health hit dice +1 plus your constitution, which is statistically better than rolling, although it's more of it is statistically better, but sometimes you might want to roll because you like that little bit of luck. So if they just want to eat for the day and they don't feel like hunting for food, you can let them take the Outlander background feature and just say that they had a moderate meal or an average meal. But if they want to eat well, you can allow them to roll survival, and if, say, they roll higher than a 10, say, then say that they ate well and give them a plus to their next acrobatics or strength-based checks, to give them incentive not always to take the average, that there is a risk, but there's also a reward. The next bonus and minus that I can think of would be bathing, which this one should make sense to any person on this planet. That if you do not bathe and you do not take care of your hygiene, people are going to turn an up nose to you, or they're going to, they're going to smell you, and it's not going to exactly be the best smell they've ever smelled in the world. You have to take care of yourself in the real world and make sure you bathe and make sure you don't smell, so people don't treat you socially different. It's not even like a, they're just being a rude thing. It's, you have to make sure you at least smell decent, so for other people, not really for yourself. But if they take this upon themselves to not only bathe, but to make sure they're constantly clean, and like maybe buy some perfume or maybe some cologne or something to make them smell a little bit better, why not give them an advantage to, to their charisma-based roles for a while, for maybe the rest of the day? Or if you're not using 5e, why not like a +2, depending on, how much they did. Maybe they not only bathed, used perfume, but maybe they bought cool clothes that looked fancy. So when they're going to like higher society type meetings, maybe like a ball or something, they'll have a bonus to their charisma and maybe diplomacy. Maybe they are trying to impress a noble. Give them, a plus to that. Points for creativity and making sure that they suit their environment and they look like what they need to look like. I ran a game not so long ago where my brother and his friend, one was a human rogue and my brother was playing a half dragon, and they were delving deep into an abandoned mine that had been overrun with kobolds. At some point in the adventure, the half dragon slaughtered a kobold, like we're talking horribly slaughtered him, and blood sprayed all over his front side, and his face was dripping with this kobold's blood. And later in the campaign, or I guess you call this a one-shot, not really a campaign, later in this one-shot, he was rolling to intimidate a group of kobolds, and he got like +5 because he was, 7'2" or something like that, and he was ripped when it came to, how much strength he had. And he had, normal bonuses to charisma-based rolls, and he had Intimidate as one of his skills, and he had blood sprayed all over him. Of course he rolled a 1 and it didn't really matter, but you get what I'm saying. You can give them circumstantial bonuses for what they're trying to do. If if someone smells nice and has bathed, they're not really going to be all that intimidating, which I don't think smell is really going to make you more intimidating. But say you put on war paint before a big battle and you let out this ginormous battle cry, and you roll to see if you intimidate your opponent. Well, give them some bonuses, because war paint is used for a reason. It does make the person who's wearing it look more intimidating. It's like a baboon. The reason its colors flare up on its, I guess you would call that a mask, is to make it look more intimidating. So circumstantial bonuses, give it to them. If they're clever enough to try it, +1, +2 won't hurt anybody. And if it just so happens they look really scary, it's not going to hurt anybody to give them a circumstantial bonus of maybe +4. Give them incentive to interact and try new things in the world and see if it works. My next subject for this video is sickness. I don't know how many of you have ever ran into a campaign where there was a major disease, or maybe you've fought a horde of rats and one of them has 2 points of disease damage, something that doesn't last very long, it's just extra points of damage. Well, what you could do as a DM is roll a d20, or have them roll a d20 constitution check or fortitude check. And depending on their roll, maybe they get sick for a while, and they have to keep making constitution checks every single day to see if it's getting better, worse, etc. And, just like a normal person when they're sick, they're not exactly at their physical peak right now. They're not operating at 100%. Maybe they have a disadvantage or a minus to physical type skills and checks. They're not going to be grade A awesome. Maybe they're nauseous and they throw up easily. In fact, in a campaign I'm in right now, we were on a boat and the water was poison, or the water wasn't poisoned, but the water was contaminated. My character drank I think 3 or 4 pints worth on maybe this first or second day, and he started throwing up everywhere on the third day, and he was sick for a while. You need to take into account what disease, like I said earlier, with how people take care of their food. What if they don't really cook their food all that well? Well, they could contract a disease from it. What if they're not making sure their water's purified? They could contract a disease from it. And these problems could be easily fixed. You could just have a cleric that summons 10 gallons per cleric level of pure water. Or you could have a druid that summons good berries that sustain you for 1 day for each good berry. These problems aren't really pressing matters if your characters are prepared for it. But what if they're not prepared for it? It's not your fault. I mean, you can drop hints about what your campaign's going to be about, but they have to have the knowledge and the forethought about all this stuff, instead of just throwing themselves into situations that they're not prepared for. You don't walk into a desert without, water skins, without, cloth to hide your face so you're not sunburned, without, plenty of food, without, proper equipment to make sure sand doesn't get everywhere, without maybe camels for travel. You have to make sure you're prepared to go wherever you're going to go and make it, out there in the wilderness and come back alive. Last thing I want to talk about is massive damage. This is where I'm going to start offending people. So if you've been cool with me so far, just stick around and maybe you'll learn or get something out of this. And you don't have to employ this. There's no rule that says you have to. There's only maybe 1 or 2 monsters that it says on their little stat block that they can and will do this. But bear with me. Let's say your party is fighting a dragon. And this dragon is huge. So it's several times bigger than your players. and the party sends in the fighter to combat with the dragon and melee with it. And let's say the dragon rolls, let's say he breaks through the AC, and he's going for a bite, and he rolls a lot of damage. Well, it's a huge dragon, and it just bit a medium creature. The best thing you could be looking at is maybe a broken arm or a broken limb. The very worst thing, if it rolled a lot of damage or critted, it just bit your fighter in half. And it's a hard thing to think about, but yeah, if a giant dragon bites into you, you're probably going to lose something out of it. If the dragon breathes fire on the ground and your characters don't do anything about it and they're just standing on fire, yeah, their feet are going to start burning. If, say, the ground's on fire again and the rogue wants to, get away because he decided he wanted to melee with the dragon, but now he decides that it's time to get out of there, if he tries to acrobat his way away and he does a cartwheel on the ground's on fire, so his hands are probably burning right now, and he can't hold his weapons as effectively. He gets like a -1 to attack and handling his weapons. It's the small things that, no one really thinks about, but you can add minuses and bonuses to. Now, if you're going to add this, I would also recommend adding the same benefit to your players, because a called shot is only like -4 to hit, and you can have benefits for hitting a dude in the crotch or a guy in the eyes. You can get benefits for aiming for certain parts of your opponent. And say your players do half your creature's damage in HP. Well, go ahead and cleave, or go ahead and say they cleaved one of the arms of the monster off, or an ear, or a foot, or a leg, and give the creature minuses that would make sense to whatever they just did. So, if you're going to employ this, remind them that this is a real world, and they can do the same thing to the monsters. They just need to be careful. That about wraps up my tips. I kind of rambled off a little bit longer than I needed to, but hopefully some of you guys are going to use this to your advantage at your table, and it'll be all great in the long run. That about wraps it up. So if you like this part and you like these tips, comment, tell me what you liked. If you thought these tips were absolute garbage, dislike, comment, tell me what you didn't like. And if you want to share this video, I'm not stopping you. Just go ahead and share it as much as you want. And if you want content just like this and you want to keep updated with all my stuff, hit that subscribe button. Until next time, I'm OddMcbump, signing off.